Hello everyone and welcome to the Game Design Archive with Edward and Ludwig.
Hello.
Hello Ludwig. Today we are gonna talk about sequels and brands and nostalgia and all kinds of stuff.
Weird stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
So go ahead Ludwig.
Yeah. So this very elaborate and intricate story starts with one of my favorite games, Europa Universalis 4. Now, for those of you that are familiar with the game, it's like a grand strategy game where you're like on a map and you have like you're playing as a country and it's a very complicated strategy game. Whatever, doesn't really matter. You don't need to understand that. But the interesting part comes from the fact that I believe it was late last year. I don't actually remember the release date, but Europa Universalis 5 came out, which is a sequel to Europa Universalis 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed something that like it feels like it's always been present in like the games industry or whatever you want to call it, but I've never thought about it in that way, and it's very interesting. And that's the fact that Europa Universalis 5, so the sequel that was recently released, is literally a completely different game from Europa Universalis 4.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you look at the actual gameplay, I mean, so like if you look at it from a very superficial level, it's like, oh yeah, it's based in like the same time period in history, and like if you were to look at the games next to each other, they kind of look a bit similar, you know. But like if you look at the actual gameplay systems, like how the economy works, how war works, how trade works, how technology works, everything is completely different. And the reason I think this is weird is because isn't the point of a sequel to like iterate on the gameplay, right?
Well, it depends on who you ask, I guess.
Yes. But what I found very interesting was that when the developers were talking about EU5, they were like they were basically trash talking EU4. They were like, "Oh yeah, EU4, it's like a primitive board game, and EU5 is a big epic historical simulation, you know, stuff like that." And it made me realize that like the devs don't actually care about the gameplay, because I play EU4 for the gameplay, right? I find the way that the systems interact, you know, they are overcomplicated.
Can I be more mean to them? I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this mirrors the like arcade discussions we've had in the past, right? Where they say like, oh, that's archaic mechanics and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna go ahead and say that I disagree with you. I think they care about the gameplay. I do think, however, that they lack the skill to make that judgment for that genre, probably, is my guess.
Well, I disagree, and the reason for that is that the developers have like explicitly said, you know, not literal quote here, I'm paraphrasing, but they've basically said that like they view EU4 as a board game, and they view EU5 as an actual historical simulation. Like that's their
so it's
their vision for
it
the
is
game.
a skill issue.
But
like, have they played 1,000 hours of EU4? You think? Which
probably
is not which is not like a lot, right? It's like a lot, but not a lot. Yeah, probably not,
like,
right? Yeah,
probably not.
Yeah. So who are they to say that the way EU4 is structured is less interesting than 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
They lack the skill to judge that. Is my
Well,
point.
no, I think what they're saying is that EU4 is less realistic.
Yeah,
right?
But that doesn't
so
mean
it's
anything.
Like the realism. Yeah, exactly.
So
it
is still a skill issue because they're just stupid.
But I think that's my point. It's like they don't actually like EU4 for the gameplay. They like it for like the aesthetic or whatever, right? And so they don't care about preserving the gameplay, even though, you know, players like the gameplay and enjoy the gameplay and want to experience more of that gameplay. But they don't care about it, so they don't preserve the gameplay. They only preserve like the vibes and the aesthetic, right?
And you know who does that?
Yeah, I mean basically all game developers.
Well, who does that? The people that don't it's a skill issue. Again, it's a skill issue.
Yeah, okay, I kind of get what you're saying. So you're saying that the reason that they don't care about EU4 gameplay is because they don't play EU4.
And maybe they don't care about it, right? At all, like you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's still a skill issue in my opinion. Like if you're making a sequel and you don't like the game before it, I mean, why?
Don't make a sequel.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not their choice, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, but I think one thing that I find interesting is that, you know, you obviously heard me talk about EU5 a lot before, but I haven't really talked about it a lot on the podcast.
Yeah.
But like up until the release, I like spoke to you and I said like, oh yeah, EU5 looks so bad. I don't know why people are hyped for it and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And then when it came out, it was like really, really well received. But then like, you know, it's the same story. Yeah, it's always the same story. Like a week after, you started hearing people like, oh wait, maybe EU5 isn't actually that good.
Yeah.
And like the like consensus kept becoming worse and worse and worse. And now people say that EU5 is a bad game. And like I checked the Steam charts for both games, like just before the podcast.
Yeah.
And the past week, EU4 has been like outperforming EU5 in player counts.
Yeah.
So it's like nobody's playing EU5
which
because
by
no
the
one's
way,
enjoying
I
it.
want to point something out that proves
Yeah.
my point that it's a skill issue. Like obviously they weren't as good at game design as the people making EU4.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, but I think the like I do agree with that, but I think the interesting part is that they aren't even like interested in trying to preserve EU4.
But
right?
why is that interesting?
What do you mean?
Like I don't know. I guess the problem is that it's still Paradox, right? It's like brand recognition, right?
Yeah.
But obviously it's not the same people making EU5 that made EU4.
Yeah, that's true.
So the people that made EU4 are more skilled game designers than the people that made EU5, right?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that the people who made EU5 could have copied EU4, right?
Because well, yes, they could have, but they're not skilled enough to do that. That's my point. Like they're just not as good as the previous designers.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't think that's necessarily true because I don't think they're interested in copying it. I think that's the part that I'm like trying to get at. They're not interested in copying it.
I guess we're arguing the same thing because I'm saying the reason they are not copying it is because they are not skilled enough to copy it. Or well, I guess I see what really. You're saying. You're saying that they should know that they're bad and just copy the previous game. Is that what you're saying?
Well, not necessarily, but like if they're making a sequel, they should take some inspiration from the previous entry, right? And they didn't, like gameplay-wise.
But the thing is, that part I think is sort of a skill issue because if you don't know what to preserve, because like you need to play the previous game to know what to preserve, right?
Yeah,
a lot.
So maybe that's a
keep going.
Yeah, maybe that's true because I think I mentioned this to you before. Like all of the mechanics from EU4 are like in EU5 but only in name.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So they have the estate mechanic, but it works in a completely different way. Yeah. They have the I'm trying to come up with mechanics and my brain but well it doesn't matter, but like there are like stability is another example, right? Stability works in a very different way in EU4 compared to EU5. So like that's actually pretty, maybe you do have a point because like all of the mechanics in EU5 are like taken from EU4 but not in that they actually work the same way. It's that they have the same name and they represent the same thing, but it's actually a completely different mechanic.
Yeah, and
so
that's, that's their interpretation of that. Like that's what they saw when they saw the mechanic and what they thought they needed to preserve when they made a sequel. Because that's how deep their knowledge of this prequel is, right? It's not a prequel, you know what I mean? It's the
previous installment or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, maybe you do have a point.
Yeah. And I think that's like in general with game design, like I know we got a lot of what's the word, like mean spirited comments or whatever you want to say, right? Last time we talked about this, but I do feel like, especially in the AAA space, but in the indie space as well, that like the overall skill ceiling or whatever you want to call it is dropping, right? So the quality of the games is dropping, not only. Like one reason why, in my opinion, the quality is dropping is because the designer's skill level is decreasing, right?
Yeah, like they're bad at games.
Yeah.
Not only they're bad at design, they're also bad at games.
Yeah.
They're bad at both.
I mean, I don't even know if those are mutually exclusive or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah, no, they aren't. They are.
I mean, I think they are basically the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say you could be good at games but bad at design, but not the other way.
Probably, yeah. But I would also argue, because designers like to argue against it, right? That there is a correlation, like strong correlation between someone that has played a lot and someone that can design a game in that genre.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's how I feel.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. Yeah.
But I do agree with you that because you need to be able to make it presentable as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a different skill.
Yeah.
And like how to manage feedback. But it's definitely like, which is very not, at least from what I've heard, right? Not how people feel about it, which is that it's better to have someone that's good at design and bad at the game, right? Versus someone that's good at the game and bad at design. And I would argue the other way, right? The person that's bad at design is easier to, like, they'll have an easier time to learn design, right? Because those steps are, like, because they understand I'm trying to think.
Yeah,
like, it's sort of like if you didn't know how to write, and you were gonna, like, let's say you're writing a book on paper for some reason, right? And you didn't know how to write, but you've read like 1,000,000 books. You're gonna be way better at writing books than someone that knows how to write but haven't read any books, right?
Yeah.
Probably a bit of a shitty analogy, but sort of that, right?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, like in my experience, all game designers that I've met that have been bad at games have been bad designers.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I feel as well.
I have also met designers who are good at games and are bad designers, but you know, there's a strong correlation between being bad at games and being a bad designer. But there is one interesting fact that I thought about, you know, going back to EU5.
Yeah.
Which I guess is more points to your point, I guess.
My main point.
Which is that EU5 was developed by like they made a new studio to develop EU5. So they like opened, because Paradox is Swedish, but they opened like a studio in Spain to develop EU5, and like from I haven't like checked very like the details, but from what I believe, it's like only the like lead designer or project lead or whatever is like the same from EU4 compared to EU5, and like the rest are completely new. So like I think that like gives what do you want to call it, like legitimacy to your claim that they don't know what they're doing. But yeah, there was I wanted to actually bring up a counter example here, because I do think one like clarification I want to make about, just to reiterate like the main point so it makes sense. It's like, why make a sequel if you're making a completely different game? Just make a different game instead. And I do think that there are cases where it makes sense to like change the gameplay a lot. And there are two examples I came up with. And the first is like any really old game. So I was thinking, like, if you look at the Elder Scrolls series or whatever, it's like the first Elder Scrolls game came out in like the early 90s, right? So like obviously it was very like limited by the technology, right? So it makes sense that, you know, Elder Scrolls Arena or whatever it's called is very different from Skyrim, because you couldn't make Skyrim back in the early 90s, right?
They probably wanted to do that to begin with, I guess.
Yeah, now I haven't actually played the earlier Elder Scrolls, and I'm not a big fan of Skyrim either, so like maybe they have also like done some weird stuff along the way, but like that sort of, you know, okay, like technology has advanced,
I don't
obviously,
know if,
you know.
If that's the, like, is that really, I guess so I'm not a big fan of that anyways, because it's sort of like, we've talked about this thing before, right? Where they're just using the world or whatever to keep like people. It's basically to sell more, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just making a new thing.
Well, I think something like the Elder Scrolls is different because like it happened over time, right? Because the franchise developed with technology, and so it slowly over time morphed into Skyrim. If that makes
Right, but
sense.
my point is that they could have made a new fantasy game instead, right?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like, the difference between Skyrim 1 and 2 wasn't that big. The difference between Skyrim...
It's not called Skyrim 2, but yeah,
Elder Scrolls, yeah. 2 and 3 isn't
boy,
that
there's
big.
three
and then
Skyrims now.
3 and 4 isn't that big, and then 4 and 5 isn't that big. But
Yeah.
like if you compare 1 to 5, it's a very big difference.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no,
so
no.
I think that makes more sense to me, where it's like, okay, every step is like slightly different.
Yeah, I agree with you fully there. I'm just saying that, like, in general, I don't know if like I would do like for out of a like a money perspective. Obviously, you want to do sequels, right? But maybe they could have just made different fantasy games, right?
Yeah.
But I guess that's sort of a different point. I see what you're saying. But I also think the development cycles were a bit faster there and stuff, and like they probably had. I feel like we should have looked at the year numbers here, right? Exactly, because I suspect. What did Bethesda do other than Elder Scrolls at the time? They did Fallout, right?
No, that's from 3 onwards.
Yeah, but they did Fallout 3 before Skyrim, right?
Skyrim? Yeah,
and then they did Oblivion before Fallout 3, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, so they have like a lot of output there, right? Which gives them a lot of time to like get better at design. But you can still see that like the design of Fallout or whatever affects Elder Scrolls, right?
Yeah.
So that's sort of my point a bit, that like I still don't think. I guess I don't like sequels. I don't know. but I mean the problem with the EU5, like you said earlier, right, is not necessarily that it is different. It's just that it's not interesting, right?
Well, no. I would say that even if it was interesting, it would still be weird because it's a completely different game, right?
Yeah.
So while EU5 is a bad game, the thing I'm like complaining about today is not that EU5 is bad. It's that the developers didn't make a sequel to EU4. They made a completely different game, right? Yeah. And so like even if EU5 was good in this case, I would still be mad at them for like not iterating on EU4, right?
Yeah.
Like if they want to make a different game, just make a different game, gameplay-wise.
Well, I mean, if we go back to Bethesda, like for example, the difference between the old Fallouts and the new Fallouts is not fine, right? In my opinion.
That's
right?
very good.
So I'm not sure if I am like. I think we are too like. I think the problem with like you said with Elder Scrolls is you haven't played the old Elder Scrolls. So you're like, well, that's maybe fine. Yeah. But if you had played Daggerfall or whatever, maybe you wouldn't be so fine with Skyrim if you like.
Yeah, that's.
So I'm not too sure that there is a difference there.
Yeah.
I guess it's my point.
Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe, yeah. I'm trying to come up with like an old game series that I've actually played like when it came out.
Call of Duty or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't play Call of Duty anymore. I stopped after like Modern Warfare 2 or something.
But even there you can argue like, they're the same game, right? But I mean, they're not really, right?
Yeah, they're very different.
And that's sort of the problem with sequels. Like that's a general problem with releasing new games. Because, okay. So I think it because it works better for indies, and if they like big changes and with indies, I think, right? And the reason I think that is because when an indie studio makes a sequel, it's the same people making the sequel. So it's sort of their idea of what a sequel of that should be, right? It's sort of the same mind creating it. Whereas the problem with something like EU4 and 5 and this is getting worse over time because games are taking longer to make, right? Is that it's not the same people at all, right? It's completely different people. So their values are completely different because let's say EU5 was very different from EU4, but the same people made it. I think you would have liked it more because the values of those designers are more in line with what you like because you liked what they valued in EU4. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I think that's like if you have the actual same people doing it, especially if not too much time has passed, because like people's values change over time. So if you like wait 20 years, for example, and do a sequel or remake or whatever, your values may have diverged so far from the original values, right, of the original game that your ideas are basically not worth. I mean, not worth is mean, but you get what I'm saying. Like they're not in line with the original values, right?
Yeah, like it makes no sense to make a sequel. Just make another game then.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually interesting that you brought it up because I was gonna bring up Risk of Rain 2.
Yeah.
Which is like an example of this, which I find to be fine. Because like Risk of Rain 1 is like it's a 2D game, right? Side scroller thing. And Risk of Rain 2 is 3D. Wow, very confusing. 2 is 3D and whatever. And I feel like that's fine because I feel like I haven't played a lot of either Risk of Rain 1 or 2, but I have played a little bit of both.
They are too slow, in my opinion, from what I've...
Yeah. Like, I going back to last week's video, I don't think they have enough pressure. That's why I don't find them very interesting. But, like, I think that style of sequel, like, where there's a big change, because, like, it's 3D, so it's very, very different. But, like, I feel like the core is still... kept somewhat, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, now we're gonna have some Risk of Rain guy in the comments going like, "No, Risk of Rain 2 is actually very different."
So I mean that's the problem with sequels, right? Because the values do change. So like, it's not the simplest thing to, keep going.
So like, if you are a Risk of Rain guy, please do leave in the comments. Like, no, you're actually wrong. This is like
two or a Daggerfall guy.
yeah, exactly. But like, I feel like. That sort of change is more acceptable in my eyes.
Yeah.
Because it's like the core gameplay of Risk of Rain 1 and 2 is like still the same. It's still like a synergy builder thing where you like collect items to make a cool build or whatever. But like Risk of Rain 2 is 3D now, so it's very different. And I think it goes back to what you said about like who are the people that are making it, and like, is it somewhat close in time? I don't remember when Risk of Rain 1 came out, but like the gap between 1 and 2 wasn't like too big, a few years probably.
Intentions also matter a lot, by the way, because like
true.
I would, if I had to guess, it's like the Risk of Rain guy wanted, or like the Risk of Rain people, it's a team, right? So the Risk of Rain people wanted to make a 3D game, but they didn't have the money, and then they could later, right?
Yeah.
So that's like their intention. They're like building up to make a 3D game, and they just used the name they already had, right? Whereas with a lot of the modern games, like EU5, they don't want to honor any of that, right? They just want the name so they can have some more money, right? Because if they called it a grand strategy something, right? Then they would sell as well as EU5. And that's the only reason it's called EU5, right?
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true. There is another reason. I don't know if we want to talk about that now, though. Do we want to go there now, or did you have more to say about this?
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So the other reason is it's the brand recognition stuff, right? So I don't know if you will agree with this, but like I feel like people put a lot of, what's the word? Like they put a lot of value in the names, right? So it's like even the designers, I don't know if they are the ones you've talked to are like that, where it's like, oh my god, I get to work on, brand X, right? Or brand Y, like right? And it's like an honor to work on that at that company, making that franchise, right?
Yeah.
So that's another part of it. And that like ties into a lot of like, I mean, brand recognition and nostalgia and stuff in general, right? Which I think is very destructive, but I think maybe it's like deep, like psychological stuff. I don't know. Because, like you said, with the EU5, people are hyped about EU5, right? Even though it's not like, it basically takes time for them to get past the hype or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess that's the hype, but what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that, well, you know what I mean, right? Where it's like, oh my god, there's a new whatever, right? Like, I'll give you a perfect example that no one will understand except you. I mean, okay, the people, some people will understand it, but most people don't play shoot 'em ups, right? Which is that the developer Cave, right? They announced a remaster of an old game recent, like a week ago or something.
Yeah.
And it's a game that's already available on Steam, right? So if they announced a remaster of one of their games that's not available, right? Like literally not available at all, then that's a reason to be excited, right? Because then you can play that game, right?
Yeah.
So it's not because they're remastering it, it's because you can now play the game, right? The old game, right? But people are very excited about this remake of this game that is already available.
Yeah.
Which is like, if you think about it, it's a bit irrational, right? Because it's like, the people that made the original one doesn't work at that place anymore.
Yeah.
It's like a mobile gacha studio these days. So you get what I'm saying, right? There is like no reason to be hyped whatsoever. It's literally like, if you get, like, I'm trying to think of a like gacha studio. It's like people are like, oh my god, Cave is making it themselves. That's great, right? But it's like, no, it's like, if like the developers of I don't know, name a gacha studio, like the popular one. Oh my god, what is it called?
I know what you mean.
Why can't I think of any gacha games now? Whatever, you get what I'm saying. Like, it's like a mobile slop gacha studio is making like a remaster of an old classic shmup, right? That's not exciting at all, right?
Yeah, I think in that case it's more of a, when we discussed like FOMO and hype culture.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a case of like it being the big new thing. So like everyone's talking about it because it's the big new thing, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like that's the part that they're excited about. They aren't actually excited about the game. They are excited about the game being the big new thing.
No, but the problem is they will probably buy it as well, right?
Yeah. And probably play it.
Yeah.
But the reason for it is because it's the big new thing, not because of the game itself.
Yeah.
Because if it was, they would just buy the version that's already available on Steam.
Yeah.
Right?
And they probably did as well.
Yeah.
Because there's not that many people that play shmups. But yes, you're 100% correct. The point is that I'm trying to make is that that's because of the brand, right? The brand is doing that. Which is very weird if you think about it, because there is nothing to that brand, right?
Yeah.
And that's sort of...
Yeah, like you're talking about the brand Cave.
Yeah, the brand Cave and the brand Dodonpachi, right? Because they're remaking an old Dodonpachi. Yeah. And like, that goes back to what you said about EU, right? Where people are very excited. Like, I think there would be less excitement for your example with EU, right, if it was called something else, right? Because people would see these mechanics. They would probably still be excited. Like, obviously. But, like, they would see because, like you said, it sounds to me like the way they spoke about EU4 is very much like people talk about arcade games, right? Which is like, oh, that's the old thing, right? And it's like, we've made this new version of this and everything is gonna be great, right? And then we're playing into like, oh, it's this thing that you recognize, back to your like point about, FOMO, blah, 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 right?
Yeah, they basically said that like EU4 is outdated, right? Which we complain about all the time. Outdated doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It's like, is the gameplay good? Yes or no? But yeah, I think that's a good point. But I also think that to like extend your point, I guess, because I agree with you. I also think that if Paradox had announced that, I don't know, Bethesda, because we were talking about Skyrim earlier.
Yeah.
If Paradox had announced that Bethesda was developing Europa Universalis 5, I don't think people would be as accepting of like the changes in EU5.
No, for sure.
Because the fact that the name Paradox Interactive is like on the like developer of the game is like, it's like, oh yeah, it's the same guys. But you know, as I just said, it's literally not the same guys. It's a completely new studio with like only one guy that was involved in EU4.
Yeah.
So it's like everyone else has been replaced.
Yeah. I mean, you can take it one step further and say like Bethesda made it and it's not called EU5. It's a new name. Like then it would be way more criticized, right?
Yeah.
Which is back to like both our points about the studios, right? Which is like, no one cares about any new shmups that come out, but if it's called Dodonpachi and made by Cave, even though it's not Dodonpachi, I mean it's a remaster, so it's technically partly Dodonpachi, I guess, but it's not made by Cave, right? It's made by a gacha studio.
Yeah. Well, is it like a remake, like a completely different game, or is it a remaster?
No one knows yet, right?
Oh, okay.
So
okay,
it could be just a remaster.
Because I do think remasters are more fine in that sense, because if it's like, okay, the publisher outsourced a studio to like update the graphics, that's more fine than like, okay, a completely different studio is making a completely different game but using the game name.
For sure, but the problem is that there is already a version of that game on Steam, so I don't know. It sounded to me like they wanted to, like, you know, reading the description, it's like trying to bring in new players or stuff like that, you know, like red flag stuff. Yeah. Maybe we can make a like different example that's more recognizable. I don't know. Do you have any?
I mean,
like you wanted to bring up Doom, right? Where it's like,
yeah, good point.
That's also the same thing, right? It's like Doom, the original, is not the new Doom, right?
Yeah, like it's because the thing is that, well, it's slightly different, right? Because Doom 2016 is like marketed as a reboot and not a remake, right?
Yeah.
So I would say it's a bit more acceptable because they aren't claiming.
I mean,
that
you can basically, that's like a sequel, in my opinion, right?
Yeah,
it's not.
Yeah, sort of.
I mean, it's not called Doom 5 or whatever. Doom 3, 4.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah, I think it's 4. Yeah. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you compare, I mean, even it wasn't even Doom 3 like super different from Doom 1 and 2 as well. It was like a sort of
it's not
weird low budget horror game.
It is not Doom.
Yeah. So I think Doom is a pretty good example for both of those reasons. It's like Doom 3 is a completely different game, and the Doom reboot is a completely different game, right? So it's like, okay, on the surface level, the Doom 2016 is like, oh yeah, you're the Doom guy, and you have a shotgun, like you have the same weapons and some new ones as well, and you're on Mars and you're killing demons. So it's basically the same game, but like if you look at the gameplay, it's very, very different.
Yeah.
Now, maybe in this case you could go back to what I said, like, okay, but Doom, the original Doom was limited by its technology, and like this is like Doom 2016 is what the original vision would have been if they made it with the technology that they have today. But I think this going back to like what you said about who does it and when they do it, it's like it isn't the same people that are making the Doom reboot. It's like John Carmack isn't involved. What's he called? The other
John
guy.
Romero.
John Romero isn't involved either. It's like none of the old people are involved. Maybe one or two. I don't know actually. But like, it's a completely different game made by a completely different team using the brand.
Yeah. And I want to make a point there, right? Which is that I find that just that practice in general, which is very common in all like art industries, right?
Mm-hmm.
I find that very, I don't know what word to use, but like maybe destructive or something. Like it's, we haven't talked about that in the past, where it's like just, I don't know what word to use, but it's like really bad in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like if it depends on your viewpoint of the medium, right? So if your viewpoint is that, oh, you're just doing it sometimes and to have some fun, then that doesn't matter, right? But if you're like me or like you, right, where we see games as art, right,
Mm-hmm.
then it's like it's really, really, really bad for the medium, right? That everything is just. Yeah, what am I trying to? Yeah, I think you get
it's
what
like
I'm saying.
relying on brand recognition.
Yeah, there is no substance at all. It's like just trying to nostalgia bait everyone constantly,
Mm-hmm.
right? There is nothing going. I mean, there is tons of good games coming out. I don't like. I'm not. There is good stuff going, but my point is like there is so much money and like talent wasted on these like pointless sequels and stuff. And like even if the games are good, right? My point is that imagine if they were original IPs, right? They could be like, imagine how many more cool worlds and stuff we would have, right? Instead of just rehashing Super Mario for the like millionth time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, probably in that case we wouldn't have that many more interesting worlds because it's Nintendo. But like, I don't know. Let's say the Doom guys, right? Maybe what if they made their own cool Doom world and it wasn't Doom, right?
Yeah.
And then you can argue, well, they can do that and call it Doom. Well, then it's not Doom.
Yeah.
Which I guess it's technically what everyone is doing. I don't know. I'm grumpy today. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, but yeah, I agree. I think it's
I don't know. I just like maybe that's not the common view, but I like, and I understand I understand money wise why, but I don't understand on a like individual level why.
Yeah, but I think this phenomenon comes from like the fact that AAA studios don't actually know how to make a good game, and so they literally cannot do anything else than rely on brand recognition.
Yeah, or at least they're not willing to risk.
Yeah.
Doing a good game.
Well, yeah,
right?
Sure. Yeah. Because the remakes aren't good, right?
Yeah.
It's like all remakes I've played at least have always been like inferior versions of the original game.
Yeah. Except for on some, like in some cases, technical.
Yeah.
How should I say? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not necessarily talking about graphics. I'm like, you know, they like run.
Yeah, like input lag and stuff.
And sometimes that stuff is better, right? And like better frame rates and stuff.
Yeah.
But
like the actual gameplay.
Yeah.
Is always more interesting in the originals.
Yeah.
And
that's sort of like if we're arguing that games are not only the gameplay, they're like all of it, right? Mm-hmm. It's a bit creatively bankrupt to like make another, you know, whatever for the millionth time. Like even if it's an original game, right? Whatever remake it is, right?
Yeah.
They're just reusing the story and the brand, right?
Yeah.
And in like, this is also an interesting side point, by the way, because it's a bit about intention as well. Because if you take brands that are public domain, so for example, let's if we're talking like the Sherlock Holmes games by Frog, what are they called? Frogwares? What are they called?
Frogwares, I think, yeah.
Like that is a bit different because they are actually like that's a public domain thing, right? It's not like they have not licensed Sherlock Holmes, right? And it's not like based on a game. It's like it's an old thing, and anyone can make a Sherlock Holmes games, right?
Yeah, well, I think I'm gonna push us into very fussy territory.
Go ahead.
We're already deep inside, but we're gonna go further.
Yeah.
Because I think that that makes sense because it's like it's an
that's my point as well.
interpretation in a way.
Yeah.
It's like if you look at like movies or books or writing or whatever, it's like remaking something like there are a lot of versions of Romeo and Juliet, for example.
Right. Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that that's necessarily bad or like uncreative. Like a lot of the versions probably are.
Yes.
But there is like something interesting in like
retelling
an author or someone like making their own version of a famous story, right? And I feel like the Sherlock Holmes games like kind of fit into that aspect a bit, right? Where it's like they are interpreting the Sherlock Holmes books in like a game form or whatever.
Yeah. And my point, one more point I had there was like that because of the like intention and the like everything around it, right? So for me at least, right? Where like Sherlock Holmes is public domain and it's very old and like anyone can do it, right? Whereas, okay, so this is sort of the point I'm trying to make, right? Because it's public domain and because anyone can make a story of that world, the sort of like canonical story, or like story is not right. Like if you make a let's take Silent Hill remake or whatever, right? I haven't played the original Silent Hill 2, but that's very like it's better than the remake, right? No one except Konami can make a remake for Silent Hill, right?
Yeah.
And they can say this is the canonical version, this is the like they have like literally the rights to determine that, right? Whereas in the Sherlock Holmes case, no one has the right about anything, right? Sherlock Holmes is public domain. So Frogware's doing their own thing. Like you can take that as canon, you can take that as not canon, etc. Right? You can do whatever you want with that because anyone can do whatever they want with that, right? Because it's available to everyone. So in that case, I feel like it's more like interesting to because like anyone can do it as well, right? So it obviously it's more interesting. Like they chose to do that, right? Because they probably because they like Sherlock Holmes or whatever, right? Whereas in the Konami case, they did it because they wanted some money from, the whole game or whatever, right? Yeah. So like the intentions are very different. It's not like some dude at Konami going, "Oh my god, I really want to make a new." And also, the Sherlock Holmes games, a lot of them are not like. I mean, some of them maybe are, but like a lot of them are original as well, right? So it's like sequels or whatever. It's not even remakes, but I mean, it's the stuff.
Yeah, like they have their own stories and stuff. Yeah, I think also like one more problem with like the Silent Hill stuff, for example, is that when they are remaking Silent Hill 2, they are saying that the remake is like the definitive version that you should play, right? And not that it's like a reimagining or whatever. Yes. It's like, no, we remade Silent Hill 2 into what it's supposed to be. This is like the old Silent Hill is archaic and outdated. This is how you're supposed to play it or whatever. And it's like just a completely different game, and it also happens to be like a generic slop game, right?
Yeah, and also they are also telling you what was important, like sort of artistically, right? Yeah. They are right. This is really hard to explain what I'm trying. Oh my god, I'm so bad at explaining stuff. Like they, like you said, they're saying this is definitive version, right? Which means that they are technically saying that the other parts, the parts they changed, they were not important to the art, right? So they're like dismissing the art, right? If that makes sense. And that's not happening in the other case because they don't have the rights, right? If that makes sense. Yeah. To overwrite the original artwork or whatever.
Yeah. And I also think it's like those kinds of reimaginings or whatever you want to call them are usually done in like with great respect to the source
Yeah,
material or whatever you want to say. So it's like, because in the Konami example, they are actively like dismissing the old stuff and saying that's bad, whereas the Sherlock Holmes games are more like, oh yeah, these books were really good, so we made a game that like is inspired by them or whatever.
I mean, there's bad faith kinds of those things as well, right? But yeah.
But like the intention isn't bad, right?
Yeah, not Frogwares probably, right? Is my point.
Yeah.
But they're
even though the like result might not be great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that also ties together with like what I said about EU4 and EU5, where like the developers don't care about the gameplay; they just want to use like the setting and the name to make something new.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's sort of the same thing with Silent Hill or the Resident Evil remakes or whatever. It's all the same. It's like they see the gameplay as bad and outdated, which of course we believe is because of a skill issue, right?
Yeah.
And so they dismiss the gameplay and add their own gameplay on top of everything.
I also think it's very disrespectful because like there's a lot of so if you look at like the Demon Souls or the Shadow of the Colossus remakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were fairly, and people are gonna get mad at me for this, right? But they're fairly respectful to the gameplay, right? They were pretty similar, I would say, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were differences, but I can forgive. I think I can forgive most of it because like it is not the simplest thing to port like a PlayStation 2 game to a modern console and not have some things be changed, right? In terms of gameplay, right? But they were very disrespectful to the rest of it, right? If you look at the art, like the for example, like Shadow of the Colossus, that's like a very what's the word, like barren, or what is barren the right word? Like there is nothing there. It's like a dead place, right? Empty. Nothing there. And in the remakes, there's like grass everywhere, and right. So it's like a very different tone, and it's like very disrespectful to the art, right?
Yeah.
So that's also like a thing with that, with doing like these like overriding remakes or whatever, right? So it's not necessarily only bad for the gameplay, right? But this is only a thing for remakes, right? And not for sequels.
For sequels, yeah.
But you could argue that tone matters for sequels as well. I think they do, right? It's like if you make a... Again, intention-wise, like if you're the original if the original team does something really quirky or whatever with a sequel that like throws you off from the intentions of the first one, I mean that can be interesting, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like this stuff is so hard to like reason about.
Yeah,
because it's like
it's very fascinating.
Because it's like, oh yeah, no, sequels are not good, and then there are good sequels, and it's like, yeah, there is, but it's like, is it because they are like, there is obviously times where like the art would not have been as good if it wasn't a sequel, right? Like it literally needs the original material as reference to be as good as it is or whatever. But I feel like that's not that often, right? A lot of the time it's more for like more money, right?
Yeah.
And I guess it's sort of this thing like, how tolerant are you to that, right? How different can the thing be? And for me, it depends. So yeah, very not specific today.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's I think it largely, as you said before, it's like, is it the same people and are they making it in like a roughly similar time period? And then also like designer skill matters a lot.
Yeah.
Both at like games and at design. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, it's like, yeah, I would trust different kinds of designers more or less to make sequels or whatever, right? As well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like if Jonathan Blow made a Braid 2, that would probably be interesting, right?
Yeah.
But then again, he's not interested in doing that, right? Because he has more artistic you know.
Yeah, but yeah, I think he talks about that all the time. Actually, he's like, oh yeah, if I wanted to make money, I would have made Braid 2
Yeah,
instead of The
yeah.
Witness. But I wanted to make a different game, so I made The Witness or something
Yeah.
like that. Paraphrasing, of course.
Yeah.
So I feel like he's very aware of that.
Yeah.
He's like, he wants to explore something new, so he makes a new franchise or whatever you want to call
Exactly.
it.
But
He has a big rant about not calling stuff video game franchises because it makes him think of McDonald's and stuff like that.
I mean,
Whatever.
it is the
Yeah.
same thing. It's literally the same thing. It's not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also don't want to, like, if you're like a smaller studio or whatever, like even a mid-sized studio, and it's like you have all these creative ideas, and the only way for it to go around like money-wise is to make like call it 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's fine, right? Like,
yeah. That's
I mean,
fine.
it's not fine, but if that's
It's
what you have to
understandable.
do, then yeah, I guess you have to do that, right?
Yeah.
If that's how you get your franchise out there or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like, it's like artistically compromised. Like, yeah, I don't have any good examples, but I think you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say Risk of Rain 2 like falls into that. Or well, no, that's more. Never mind. That's different. But yeah, I get what you're saying. There was one studio that I actually wanted to mention because I think that they get sequels kind of right.
Oof, I'm gonna roast you. Go ahead.
Oh, you are?
No,
Okay.
I'm not
okay.
really, but a little bit maybe. If it's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and that's FromSoft.
Oof, roasting time.
Because, like, FromSoft, you know, the Dark Souls games are fairly similar to each other, right? Obviously, there are differences, and you're gonna go on a rant here. I know, because you've played all of them, and I've only played the first one. But like, if you look at something like, you know, Dark Souls 1 to 3 and compare it to like Sekiro is very, very different compared to the Dark Souls games. And if you look at Elden Ring, you know, Elden Ring is probably a bit more similar to Dark Souls, but then it's like big open world and stuff like that.
It is pretty different still, though.
Yeah. And so I just wanted to bring them up as an example of like, you know, when they make something that's sort of similar to the original Dark Souls, they call it Dark Souls 2 and 3.
Yes.
But when they make something different, they call it Bloodborne, they call it Sekiro, they call it Elden Ring, and so on. Which is a very good approach in my opinion.
Yeah, we can start in that end actually, because we have been rambling a lot, and maybe it's completely incomprehensible to a lot of our viewers. So I'm gonna use your example to like try to make like what do you say, like a theoretical scenario here, right? To make to talk to our point or whatever, right? So if we imagine they didn't do that, right? You said that they have a lot of different brands, right? Or name like games, right? And people like a lot of them, the different ones like Bloodborne and Sekiro and, you know, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And they have their own different worlds. Like, imagine if they did not do that. Imagine if like Sekiro was like Dark Souls. I guess that would be 3, but let's say 4. No, it would be 4. Whatever, right? No, because Bloodborne would be 3. Whatever. It's a Dark Souls game, right?
Yeah.
And then you would all of a sudden have a huge problem, because like it's like you said, it's a kind of good game, right? But it's not Dark Souls. It's very different.
Yeah.
So now you get this like divisive. Is divisive the right word?
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, like split, right, between the players,
Yeah,
where
like
it's
in the fan base.
Yeah, because the people that care about Dark Souls are gonna be very upset, right? Because this is not Dark Souls. Like, this is compromising the art or whatever, the Dark Souls
like
art.
the gameplay.
Yeah, because it's not what Dark Souls is, right? It's something different. But there would also be a part of that likes it, right? Because it's still good, right? So that's why I think I mean, I agree with you that their approach is better, right? Where you have new names, because you don't get that, right? You don't get that split, right? I get that you get more money by creating that split, because you get brands get you money, but like for the like art side, it doesn't it ruins it, right? I guess, yeah. And I mean, like you said about Dark Souls, like Dark Souls 2 and 3 are not like Dark Souls 1, like in the slightest. They're very, like Dark Souls 3, for example, is way closer to Bloodborne than to Dark Souls 1.
Oh, okay.
So like you can, you like their what's the word? Like the way they design everything, right, over time. If you don't, I mean, Dark Souls 2 is wonky as well, because like Dark Souls 2 is, I would argue Dark Souls 2 is sort of a like, maybe Dark Souls 2 is what man, I don't think Dark Souls 2 is super bad, so maybe I'll get some hate in the comments for this, right? But Dark Souls 2 is sort of like because it was the B team that did that, like it wasn't the normal people, they were making Bloodborne. And maybe that's comparable to your original comparison with EU5, right? Where Dark Souls, I feel like Dark Souls 2 is what you would get if they actually respected 4, but if they were bad.
Yeah, like a new team respected it. Yeah, okay,
so it's like, it's actually more faithful to Dark Souls than Dark Souls 3, but it's like, it's got a lot of issues because they're not as skilled.
Yeah, okay.
That's my opinion, right?
No, it makes sense.
Yeah, and someone will probably disagree in the comments, and that's fine, because this is like very fuzzy stuff, right? But again, like, it is still very different. So like, should it be the same thing? I don't know. I don't like sequels. I don't know if I made a good point there. I'm sorry, maybe I did.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
About them.
Yeah. But maybe like to like confirm your point, you're saying that the Dark Souls games are also fairly different, so like they aren't even perfect themselves.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at them, they all look very different. Like,
yeah.
The first one is like very. I'm bad at like artsy terms, but it's like very dark. Dark fantasy, I think, right? And then like the sequel is more like normal high fantasy, and then the third one is like gray. I don't know. It's like super boring. It looks ugly.
Well, wasn't that released in like the modern military shooter era where everything was brown?
No, it was later. Like that was it? Oh, okay. Yeah, that was like 2016.
Oh yeah, maybe Dark Souls 1 was.
Yeah, it was. Dark Souls 1 was.
Yeah. Never mind then.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah, I think partly why it's so ugly is because I think they had issues this is, by the way, not based on any like this is just a guess, right? Is my point.
You're spreading misinformation.
Yeah, you're spreading misinformation. But it feels like to me, like when they went to PS4, they upgraded their tech, right, to like use more modern shader stuff, right? And it took some time for them to get the art right. And I think like Sekiro, Elden Ring, sort of they sort of found it again, right? It started to look good again. Bloodborne, Bloodborne looks good, but it's not like the colors is not as, I don't know. They feel a bit off compared to like Dark Souls 1, for example. Dark Souls 1 is very like, they got the color stuff right, I think. That, for me, I mean, that's subjective as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Spreading misinformation.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna ask, do you think we've made our point? But I don't think we have, because we've
yeah, we've not made any points at all today. But that's
yeah,
fine.
we've just discussed a bunch of hypotheticals, I guess. But that's good as well.
I think we should bring up the final point though, as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, so like the perfect example of all of this, I think, is the Final Fantasy franchise, right? It makes no sense whatsoever, right? It's a complete mess. Yeah. You have the original games that are like these 2D turn-based games, right? And now we're in the like 3D action whatever. Like there's MMOs in the it's just like franchise slop basically. It's just using the name, and that's like complete in that part of it. Like I'm not saying there aren't good Final Fantasy games in the franchise, even though the gameplay, like all of them have huge issues with like grind and stuff, right? But I'm not saying that there is no like interesting things going on in any of them. I'm just saying like the part that they're all called Final Fantasy is just ridiculous. Like it's just like
or like the stories and settings even related in any way? No, I don't.
The ones that are called like 2 and 3. So you have like
like
Final Fantasy 13 1 and or like 13 and then 13 2 and then 13 3. And then you have 10 2 as well, I think.
Isn't there like a Final Fantasy 7 as well somewhere there that's like fairly new or something?
Yeah, they remade 7.
Yeah, but it's like a completely different game. Right?
I mean, gameplay, yes. I think they kept part of the story, but they split it into 3 games. So they've made like 7 Remake 1, 7 Remake 2, and they haven't released 7 Remake 3.
Yeah.
As you can tell, this is like insanely ridiculous, right? It makes no sense. And I think, I don't know,
I want to make a comparison here.
Go ahead.
That's going to make Final Fantasy fans very, very angry.
I'm okay with that.
The Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not.
It's like
it's not connected in that way, I guess. So you can.
But even I would even say that the Marvel Cinematic Universe makes more sense because it's like it's all based on like the original what's it called like magazines.
Yeah.
Comics is what they call it. Yes. So it's like it's more coherent than Final Fantasy where like everything is completely unrelated.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and like it's obviously only done to like bait people into buying it.
Yeah. Yeah, like brand recognition stuff.
I have such a hard time. Like I'm thinking of the like Final Fantasy stuff now, right? Where it's like people were so excited about the Final Fantasy 7 remake, and it's like it's not Final Fantasy. Like I haven't played Final Fantasy 7, so I don't have any like relation to it. But like it's very clearly not Final Fantasy 7. Like feels a bit icky in a way, right? Because it's like they're just using that world and those characters to make some money, right? I don't know.
Well, isn't it like, you know, as the case always is, it's like the people who are excited for it aren't like there are probably Final Fantasy, like people who have played Final Fantasy 7 who are excited for it, but a lot of the people who are excited for it are also people who haven't played Final Fantasy 7 and are like
but it must like
looking for an opportunity to get into it.
But I think it's driven by like I don't know how this works. Maybe we should read like a psychology book or something. But like I'm thinking it feels like to me at least how it works is like the nostalgia kicks in, right? It's like, oh my god, I played Final Fantasy 7 when I was a kid. They get excited, right? So and then that snowballs, right? Because you have like I played this old game, blah blah blah, right? I'm so excited, and then the people that don't even know or care, they get excited, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm.
And then they get a reason to play that, and then they can say, I played Final Fantasy 7, even though they didn't, because they didn't play the original game. They played this garbage new one, right?
Yeah, well, because like, you know, how do I say this? Like, it's like people who haven't played Final Fantasy 7 but like have heard of it, they see like an opportunity to get into it.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And so they get excited as well.
Yeah.
Because they don't actually care about Final Fantasy 7. They don't actually want to get into it because then they would have gotten into the original.
Yeah.
But they aren't doing that, so they're like, oh yeah, but the next big thing is a Final Fantasy, so now I'm excited.
And it's also hard because like you could argue some of those, it would be better to throw away the gameplay rather than the story, if that makes sense. Like they would be better as like a visual novel or something.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a bit of mean comments from that maybe. But I don't know. Like I feel like some of them actually don't have that much interesting gameplay. It's more like they're very story focused, right? So then it's like, oh, they remade this. Like even that doesn't make sense, right? And then it's like, I don't know. I guess
it's
like
a remake, but we remade everything.
I don't know. It's so hard to talk about because it's like.
Wouldn't that technically be a reboot?
Yeah.
If we wanna.
Yeah, I mean it is a reboot
maybe,
or whatever you want to call it,
yeah.
but like I don't get. I mean, we have talked about it, so I do understand why, but it's like. I just want more new stuff, I guess. Like it's very much, we're very much in the like slop era now, right? There is no new franchises being created. I mean, I'm like exaggerating. There are new franchises being created, but you get what I'm saying. Like most of the games coming out from bigger studios are sequels or remakes.
Yeah.
Right, and that did not used to be the case, right?
Yeah.
Like even in the like the other slop era, the modern military shooter slop era, right? We had like Medal of Honor, Call of Duty, Battlefield. You know, there was like a ton of different franchises.
Well, I mean, all of those were like before modern military shooters. They were all like early.
That's true. That's true. Never mind. Yeah, you win.
Yeah,
no,
they were all sequels and remakes back then too.
but I mean, they did some. There was some newer ones popping up, right, as well. Yeah, like Homefront and. I mean the Spec Ops
Rising
game.
Storm.
I mean it was like Rising Storm, yeah.
Although that's World War II. No, that's World War II, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, there were a few new ones popping up.
I mean there was a lot because it was a like slop era, right? So there was like a lot of. And I guess we're doing the same thing now.
Duty Calls.
Duty Calls, the best modern military shooter.
Yeah.
If you haven't played Duty Calls,
should play that.
Everyone should play that.
Play it now.
Yeah. Maybe I should put some gameplay of that. I don't know if I'm gonna do that this time, but I'm gonna record some gameplay for that at some point and have it in a video. It's the best modern military shooter.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I guess it was always a bit sloppy. I don't know. But no, it is worse now because, like you said, with the studios not taking any risks, right? And they're not like splitting up the resources. They're doing like big projects and stuff. So then they don't want to risk making anything new.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you look back at like the early 2000s, early 2010s, it's like basically all famous franchises today are from that time. Like
or older,
Battlefield, Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, Ubisoft love making Assassin's Creed games, Far Cry. They're all from that kind of time period. And it feels like AAA games have kind of stopped. Like the only ones innovating are like FromSoft, which is probably why they
get so much
famous.
cred, right?
Yeah, because exactly. That's why people like them.
Even though they're making very similar games, they're like doing different things with them and stuff. Yeah. I mean, there are other studios as well, but
a bit of exaggeration, but like.
I also feel like they are more like I don't remember. I read some like interview from the what's his name, Miyazaki guy, right?
Yeah.
And like it sounded very much like because they made this like very wonky like extraction shooter thingy, Nightfall. Yeah. And it sounded like basically I just let this other dude be a director so he can get better, right? So it sounds like they're like skill preserving. Very much like what are they called? The Baldur's Gate people, right?
Oh, Larian Studios.
Exactly. They've also talked about that, right? Where it's like, look, you can't just replace your designers every 3 years or something, right?
Yeah.
Because they then you don't have any, right? You can like
you don't learn anything.
Yeah, like you can't just tell everyone at your studio to make a multiplayer co-op shooter when your main focus have been immersive sims for like 10 years. Hint. I wonder what studio that is.
Yeah.
And then everyone leaves and then the game shuts down.
Yeah. Story as old as time, except not because it's kind of
it's kind of a new story, but
yeah. Well,
I guess we'll end it here because it's
we'll
not comprehensible
whatsoever.
But hopefully, you will get some like nuggets of information here that you can think about and then make sense of.
Yeah, and if you have like your own perspectives, please leave a comment, because I feel like that would perhaps help us consolidate these thoughts into like an actual comprehensive theory, or whatever you want to call it.
We're gonna make a 5-hour what are they called? Video essay.
Essay.
Yeah,
no. But yeah,
with the Slope podcast
EU5
channel.
sucks.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for listening and watching, everyone. Don't forget to leave a like, dislike, comment, as I said, and of course subscribe, because we share so much wisdom or something.
Do we? Are you sure about that?
Yes, especially this episode.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't share wisdom, but it was thought provocative.
Yes, that's our goal.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you, and goodbye.
Bye, everyone.